No, man, listen. I know you love Sara Bareilles. I'm just saying that Carrie O'Malley is a severely underrated baker's wife. She's fantastic, okay? Okay, listen, look. I'm not denying Sara Bareilles is talented. I just don't see what you see. Sorry, friends. Anyway, the brand new cast recording of Into the Woods is out, and we are going to talk about it today. Welcome to Teacup for One. My name is Matt, and I have 2 degrees. And friends, it is finally here. The 2022 revival cast recording of Into the Woods. This is the second revival, and I cannot tell you like how important this is to me, or how much this means to me. Into the Woods is my favorite piece of writing. Like, it's not my favorite musical, not my favorite play, it is my favorite thing that anyone has ever written, taking into account plays, musicals, screenplays, novels, poetry, like the back of cereal boxes. Yeah, like Into the Woods. That's it for me. Growing up, I had the VHS of the original Broadway cast, and like, I wore that out watching it so much. When the 2002 revival came around, that was the first time I went like full fanboy on anything, and I was at the mall the day that album dropped, and they didn't actually have it in stock, and they looked at me really weird for rushing to HMV to get a musical theater recording. But eventually, I got my hands on it, and I listened to it again ad nauseum. I've been in the show twice. In high school, I was the mysterious man. In university, I was the baker. You know, I've gone to New York City to see like off-Broadway productions twice. One time it led to me inadvertently being homeless in New York City for 48 hours. Like, Into the Woods, it holds a very big piece of my heart. So I almost considered not doing a video to review this latest cast album because I knew that I'd have too much to say. I knew that I'd be too biased, and all of those things still apply. But I couldn't pass up an opportunity to talk about Into the Woods, and so here we are. Now, at the time of recording this video, the album has been out for just about a week, and I have listened to it, I kid you not, every single day. Not necessarily because I wanted to, but because I wanted to try to get past my bias to come up with the most objective opinion I can have about this new cast recording. And my final verdict? It's nice. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just nice. Okay, that's not fair, I clearly just wanted to quote the show. No, I do think it is undeniably a good album. I would even go as far as to say it is a great album, but clearly I have some issues being objective about a brand new Into the Woods recording, and I've been reflecting on why, and I think it boils down to 2 reasons, and I'm going to tell you what those reasons are right after this word from our sponsors. Today's video is sponsored by me! The Teacup for One t-shirt t-shop is now live on Etsy. Yes, the Teacup for One t-shirts that you know and love are still available on our original store, but now they're also available on Etsy because it's easier to reach internet strangers that way. You can check out the Etsy store for all the latest designs, where you can get yourself one of these nifty Teacup for One logo shirts, among other fun designs. I'm always adding something new to the store if I'm being inspired any which way. One of the latest collections is inspired by my favorite fairy tales, and I'm sure yours as well. We have this shopping list t-shirt where there's a cow as white as milk, a cape that's like blood red, hair which one might compare to the color of corn, and a golden slipper. We've got some other fantastic fairy tale inspired t-shirts as well, and a myriad of other theater and theme park-esque inspired shirts. So go check out the Teacup for One t-shirt t-shop, link in the description down below. Moving on. Okay, so back to what I was saying. It is pretty hard for me to be objective about any new Into the Woods recording, and I think it's, to some degree, hard for anybody to be objective about a new Into the Woods recording, and this is why. The original production of Into the Woods is pretty damn near perfect. So no matter how good any subsequent cast is, inevitably you're going to be drawing comparisons to the original. It's kind of what I understand Plato's theory of forms to be. That's neither here nor there. I like to drop in that reference anytime I can so I can feel better about almost failing my university philosophy course. But the original production of Into the Woods is pretty much perfect, and I think that bleeds into the other reason that it's hard to be objective about new recordings of Into the Woods. Because there's not much to change when you're doing a revival. You know, usually when there's a revival recording, it's been 30, maybe 40, 50 years since the previous production, so there's going to be adjustments to the orchestrations. They're going to sound a little bit more modernized. There's going to be some kind of pitch to get you to listen to the new recording. I mean, perfect example, the latest revival of Oklahoma. That's unlike any production of Oklahoma that we've heard before, but we've heard Into the Woods before many times. I mean, we have the original Broadway cast recording, we have the original West End recording from like 96, I believe, there's the 2002 revival recording, there's the soundtrack for the Disney film, and we'll talk about that for another day. So, I mean, not to play devil's advocate, but do we really need another Into the Woods recording if it's not going to offer us anything better or new? And I think that's where I'm conflicted. There are some performances on this album that are so similar to what I've heard before that I feel like I've heard this before, and in some cases I've heard it done in a way that I personally prefer. In other cases, there are vocal choices and stylistic choices that are completely different from what I've heard before, but they don't necessarily sit as well with me. But then you find this beautiful sweet spot that's kind of in the middle, where there are changes and new interpretations that feel fresh, thrilling, and unlike anything that I've heard on an Into the Woods recording before, and to me, that is exciting, that is thrilling. So with that, let me dive into the things that I personally love about this recording, like the good stuff. Obviously, the heart and soul of this production is the cast. And yes, there are performances that don't resonate as strongly with me, but that's entirely a personal preference thing. Objectively speaking, this cast is phenomenal. They're flawless, and the cast is largely the reason that this production ended up going to Broadway at all. So with that said, the standout performers for me on this recording, first and foremost, Patina Miller as the witch. And I know, that's the easy answer. That's like saying that Pikachu is your favorite Pokemon, but like, just hear me out. Patina Miller, she had, first of all, some big witch shoes to fill, considering that Heather Headley originated the role of the witch in this production when they first did their concert run. But Patina Miller, oh my god, she did not disappoint whatsoever. She delivered exactly what I wanted from this entire production. She was honoring the music, she was honoring the character, but at the same time, she was completely original and unique from the previous two witches that we've had on the other Broadway cast albums. And I'm going to come in with my hottest take of hot takes right now. Actually, no, I have more hot takes to come. I'm going to come in with the first hot take of this video. Ready? Patina Miller's is my favorite recording of Last Midnight. I know, I said it. All due respect to Bernadette Peters. I adore Bernadette Peters as the witch. No one can do better than Bernadette Peters as the witch. But you know what? Patina Miller met the standard that Bernadette Peters set, and her acting choices and her vocal choices, they just meet my personal preferences. I think the storytelling and the vocal variation in this Last Midnight is just, oh, it is chef's kiss. Along similar lines, two other standouts for me on this recording were Julia Lester as Little Red Riding Hood and Cole Thompson as Jack. Those two roles are so difficult, in my opinion, to cast, and I think there's been a tendency over the past 10 to 20 years to cast them as being almost too young. I think the 2002 recording is especially guilty of this, and Adam Wiley has an incredible voice, but the impression that I've gotten listening to the 2002 recording is that they pushed him to sound younger than he actually was. There's kind of this nasality to his singing voice as Jack that's not present when you hear him sing anything else. He has this beautiful, resonant tenor voice, but it sounded like they said, sound like a kid. And that's the problem when it comes to Jack and Red. Their whole arc, their whole story is about them growing up. Like, I think Jack and Red need to play as 16 or 17 as opposed to 10 or 12. They need to be old enough that they are able to take care of themselves, but they've been sheltered their whole lives, and then when their parents or guardians are killed or taken away from them, they're old enough to come into their own as adults. It's this beautiful story of growing up seen through the eyes of like the two youngest characters in the show, and that is what I'm getting from the casting of Julia and Cole in these roles. I love Cole Thompson's voice, especially for this role. Like, I'm pretty sure Cole Thompson is a tenor, but he just has this deeper, richer resonance to his voice that I don't think we hear from Jack's as often. And just that vocal maturity mixed with this naive, innocent spirit that he seems to have as a performer, it's just this beautiful blend. It's kind of similar to what we saw from Ben Wright in the original Broadway production, and this is one of the first Jacks that I've liked. Actually, I'm just going to say, this is the first Jack that I've loved listening to on any Into the Woods recording since the original Broadway cast. And Julia Lester. I mean, what can I say? I love Julia Lester. She is one of the standout performers for me on High School Musical, the series, and she is so perfectly cast in this role. Because this is somebody who she has a phenomenal voice, but she's also an incredible actor, and she understands comedy, and her text work on some of these songs is outstanding. I think this is one of the most creative, hilarious takes on Red that I have ever heard. She's finding comedy within the lyrics that I never thought would have been there. Just simple things. Even the way that she's oscillating so effortlessly between being bratty and trying to be sweet in the opening when she's like, "Just a loaf of bread, please." So good. And this is what I appreciate about her performance. This is how you have a character voice without sacrificing vocal technique. I mean, that was my big complaint with Vanessa Williams on the 2002 recording, and yes, I'm aware, they're two different characters. But when you listen to Vanessa Williams on the 2002 recording as the witch, you're just hearing witchy voice, and I think her voice is inhibiting the performance, but it's also inhibiting her vocal quality. I'm not able to enjoy the music as much because I'm just hearing witchy voice. But Julia is grounding her character voice in just the perfect sweet spot where she's able to give me a good performance while still honoring the music. Other standouts for me on this album are the actresses playing the stepsisters Lucinda and Florinda. They are the epitome of the philosophy of no small roles. I mean, they are hemming it up, they are milking those lyrics, and they are making strong, hilarious performance choices. I think one of my most re-listened to moments on this entire album is in the prologue when it's like, "You look beautiful, I know. She means me. Put it in a twist." It's so good. They are just so foppish and bratty and hilarious, and I love it. And I think that's truthfully my favorite thing about this whole album. I mean, not put it in a twist, who will be there? Like, yes, that, but on a broader spectrum, I love how unique and original every single characterization is on this album. I mean, Into the Woods, it's an ensemble of archetypes, and when you look at past productions, there are some characters that, like, there's been a tendency to cast the princes and the stepsisters as virtual copies of each other. Even when you go back to the original Broadway recording, like the video recording, the princes look the same, move the same, sing the same, the stepsisters look the same, move the same, sing the same, and it works, and it's fine, it's nice, it's not good, it's not bad, it's just nice. But it's not the strongest choice. It's kind of boring. This production didn't fall into that trap, and I think it's stronger for it. Now, granted, with that said, the trade-off is that, like, they cast a tenor for the prince, and as a baritone, knowing how few baritone roles there are nowadays, seeing that role or hearing that role sung by a tenor, like, it's not my first choice. It works, but either way, this is the first time I've enjoyed a rendition of Agony. Because that's my second hot take for this video. Agony is my least favorite song in the whole show. But these two guys, Gavin Creel and Joshua Henry, they made it funny, and they made it beautiful to listen to. And like that's what you need from Agony. Okay, so we've talked about the stuff that I love. Now let's move on to the stuff that, like, I don't want to say the stuff that I didn't love. I don't want to say the bad stuff. I guess I'm just going to say the stuff that didn't resonate with me as much. And this is, like, take it with a grain of salt, because I'm a very pretentious Matt, and when it comes to Into the Woods, there are very specific things that I want, need, and wish for from an Into the Woods recording. The first thing, as I kind of touched on, is I'm still getting used to Gavin Creel as the wolf / Cinderella's prince. And I mean, I have the baritone bias as well. I'm not going to pretend that I don't. I think his flawless tenor voice works with Cinderella's prince, but I don't love it with the wolf. I do think it works with the wolf to make the character seem charming and alluring, but when you listen to Gavin Creel's Hello Little Girl up against Robert Westenberg or Greg Edelman, there's just this darker, growling quality that I'm missing that makes it the animalistic song that it is. I will also admit, I was a little underwhelmed by Phillipa Soo in the prologue. In the prologue only. So her bird summoning aria, as well as some of her other soprano-y moments in the prologue, it just didn't have the same vocal power that I'm accustomed to hearing from Laura Benanti and Kim Crosby, but the rest of her songs were phenomenal. And I think that's a fair trade-off. If I can have a Cinderella who's going to give me an On the Steps of the Palace that's as well thought out and specific and well acted as what Phillipa gave us, and more importantly, her No One Is Alone is perfection. And I knew it was going to be perfection. You just watch like a snippet of anything she does in Hamilton, you know that she is the perfect person to pull off Cinderella, especially Act 2 Cinderella. And No One Is Alone is debatably the most important song in the entire show, so you need to find someone who's going to deliver a performance worthy of the material. And she does. And she's perfect. But she didn't win me over in the prologue. She won me over as it went on, just not in the prologue. And I think my issues with the prologue might actually be outside of the sphere of any specific performer, and might just boil down to musical direction. I've listened to it a bunch of times, and I don't love the musical direction for this rendition of the prologue. So, like most people, my favorite part of the prologue are those last 2 minutes, when everything builds and all of the characters are going into the woods. And it wasn't doing it for me on this 2022 album, and I couldn't figure out why. So I went back to my personal favorite recording, which is the 2002 recording. Yes, I know, probably the worst objectively, but it has nostalgic value. So I went back to the 2002 recording, and I realized that the difference is that in the 2002 recording, that moment, it's moving at a brisker pace. They are over-enunciating the hell out of every single lyric. So you're getting something that sounds kind of like, into the woods you have to go, it may be all in vain, I know, into the woods, but even so you have to take the journey. And that is brisk, that is at a tempo that's creating tension, it's creating excitement. It sounds like a heartbeat. You hear the heartbeat of all of those characters as they are moving into the woods. This 2002 recording, it's a little bit more relaxed. It's playing like, into the woods you have to go, it may be all in vain, I know, into the woods, but even so you have to take the journey. And it sounds beautiful. There is still a little bit of that staccato nature, but because they're not over-enunciating the hell out of it, I'm losing that wonderful tension and excitement and that heartbeat moment that is important to me. And while we're on the topic of the music being a little bit more relaxed and, dare I say, a little bit more dreamy than I'm accustomed to hearing with Into the Woods, let's talk about Sara Bareilles. Now, I don't want hate. I don't want hate in the comments section. Actually, I do, because that's engagement, but I don't want hate thrown at me, so I'm going to pick my words very carefully here. I'm still getting used to Sara Bareilles as the baker's wife. And I suspect I'd feel differently if I had the privilege of seeing her do the show in its entirety, because from an acting perspective, I think she is a brilliant casting choice for the baker's wife. Just as a human being, I think she comes off as being incredibly relatable, open. She has this wise, grounded quality to her alongside a biting sense of humor, and those are all qualities you want and need from a great baker's wife. And as a performer, I feel like she just bleeds emotional honesty when she sings. Those are all the ingredients for a perfect baker's wife. I actually think my friend said it best. As an artist, she has the voice of an angel and the songwriting skills of a Beatle. But going purely off of what I've heard on the album, I'm still getting used to hearing the baker's wife sung with more of a pop sound as opposed to a traditional musical theater sound. I think undeniably Sara Bareilles sounds beautiful, the emotional honesty is there, but the storytelling is just landing differently for me from what I'm used to. And I think that's more of a Matt problem. I need to unprogram my bias towards this role and towards this music to appreciate a completely unique take on the material. And honestly, I think part of my issue, I don't even have an issue, but part of the thing that doesn't resonate with me about Sara Bareilles as the baker's wife, I don't think it has as much to do with her as it has to do with, I'm not feeling the love between the baker and the baker's wife. And as much as it pains me to say it, I think that more so falls with Brian Darcy James as the baker. And I love Brian Darcy James. I was thrilled when I heard that he was cast as the baker. The baker is the most important role to me in this show. It's the one that I hold at the highest standard of my already high standards. So I don't even know if anyone would have done it justice. But this is my thing. I think Brian Darcy James is perfect casting for the baker, but like 10 to 15 years or so. His version of the baker on this recording is coming off to me as being more grumpy old man than anything else. And even when I watch some of the like behind the scenes footage of them recording the album in the recording studio, during It Takes Two, you just see Sara being lovely, trying to connect with her stage husband, but he's not giving her the attention and the love that I think the baker needs to be giving, especially in that song. He's not delivering me the vulnerability that I need to see from that character. He is coming off again kind of like a grumpy old man. I think he sings No More beautifully, but there are just little lines of dialogue that I think are giving me a peek into his interpretation as an actor of the character, and there's just something that's missing for me. It was missing the warmth. It was missing the heart. But I will say, his moment of maybe I just wasn't meant to have children, that was the one thing on this album on my first listen that broke me. I listened to this whole album stone-faced, being judgmental and overly pretentious the way that I am, but once he said maybe I just wasn't meant to have children, like, that got me. So that's not to say that I don't love what Brian is bringing to the table in the role, but again, maybe like Sara, I would need to see it in person to appreciate it fully. Honestly, if I could mix and match the casts that have moved through this production, I would I would commit petty larceny to see Sara Bareilles matched with Sebastian Arcelus. Now, yes, I know Sebastian is married to Stephanie J. Block and they have great chemistry together, yes. But just as performers, I think the energy of those two in those roles, that would be nothing short of magical. And actually, if I'm taking this moment to wish for my ideal Into the Woods casting, can we please put it out and manifest it into the universe to get Jessie Mueller as the baker's wife? Maybe not even in this production, but just at some point, because that would be incredible. I actually saw her as Cinderella at the Public Theater's Into the Woods. Phenomenal. But like Jessie Mueller as the baker's wife, that's a Tony Award just waiting to happen. Am I right? I'm right. Okay, so, final verdict. I did not have the emotional, transcendent experience that I expected to have listening to this album. The emotional, transcendent experience that almost every other person who's reviewed this album seems to have had. And honestly, I don't know what could have done that for me, because my standards are pretty unrealistic and pretty high. If anyone were to ask me for the ultimate Into the Woods recording, I would probably still always point them to the original Broadway cast. However, I would point people to the Patina Miller rendition of Last Midnight as the ultimate Last Midnight recording. I mean, my personal favorite will probably always be the 2002 recording with Vanessa Williams as the witch, and yes, I recognize, objectively speaking, it is probably the weakest out of all the Into the Woods recordings we have out there. But I think the orchestrations on that album are beautiful, the tempo is where I like it, but most importantly, that is the one that has the most nostalgic value for me. That's the album that reminds me of the time when I fell in love with this show, when this show became as important to me as it is. And if this new recording can become that for somebody else, then I absolutely think it was worthwhile to get a brand new Into the Woods album, even if it sounds like a journey we've taken before. So, you're welcome, Gen Wires. I did absolutely nothing. Okay, friends, with that, this concludes yet another episode of Teacup 401. Now let me know in the comment section down below, have you listened to the brand new revival album of Into the Woods, and what did you think? Also let me know, would you be interested if I curated a playlist of my ultimate Into the Woods albums? Like if I took my favorite tracks from every Into the Woods recording and just like created Matt's ultimate Into the Woods playlist, because I feel like I might do that. I might even make it a video. Who knows? We'll find out together. But if you want to know when that video happens, if it does, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed already. And if you haven't subscribed already, it is so easy. All you have to do is click on my face. Thanks for joining me today, everyone. My name is Matt, and I have 2 degrees, and that's the Teacup for 1. You may know what you need, but to get what you want, better see that you keep what you have. One midnight gone.